Good evening, hikers. Broadcasting from the rocky coast of Maine, where the waves whisper in a way that's both enticing and vaguely ominous. This is the Fogcast. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you've ever driven across this state, you've passed them. The small villages that look like they were lifted straight out of a Hallmark movie. Quiet coastal towns. Mill cities like Lewiston with their brick-lined streets. Picturesque places, each holding stories that rarely make the brochures. And if you live long enough in the shadows of the pines, you'll hear one of those stories sooner or later. Missing. Maybe it's a radio bulletin. Maybe it's a post shared across social media. Someone has disappeared. Every time, the hope is the same, that they'll be found quickly, safe and sound. But here in Maine, that isn't always how the story ends. Sometimes people vanish. Sometimes there's a trail. But a crucial piece is missing. Other times they seem to slip out of the world without leaving so much as a footprint behind. My guests tonight spend their time chasing those unanswered questions. Travis and Jeff, hosts of Locating the Lost, are dedicated to telling the stories of those who stepped off the trail and never returned. We had a fascinating conversation about the cases that have stayed with them and a few strange experiences that they've had themselves. Before we get to the show, here's a friendly don't listen to the voice calling from the tree line or else you'll get got reminder to light your lantern and join us on Patreon, where you can get early access to ad-free episodes, digital extras, and exclusive content. Visit acadiaafterdark.com for more horror from the woods of Maine. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome back, folks. I am joined today by the hosts of the Locating the Lost podcast, Travis and Jeff. Guys, how you doing? Very glad to have you with me tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. We're doing good.
So we've been chatting a little bit online, Travis, and I'm going to be on your show on Thursday. But before I do that, I wanted to have a chance to get to know you fellas. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your show?
Jeff, you want to talk?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
You sound so good.
So, our podcast is, it started out, I should say, as trying to spread awareness about like people who have been missing in Maine, like cold cases and stuff like that. Originally it was supposed to be just Maine, maybe New England. And it sort of started to grow. We started getting contacted by people from Canada, and then it started moving further west. We got people from like Arizona and California, Mexico reached out to us. And even like we had a police officer from, or detective from, was it Indiana?
Yeah.
Travis reached out to us because she wanted attention drawn to a case. But that's sort of what the idea of it is, we try to get preferably family members of the person involved with the person who either the cold case or the missing person, so that we can talk to someone who's, directly involved in the situation. It's, in my opinion, it's a lot more, visceral is not the right word. Like you can feel it, like you can feel the actual emotion. If you're talking to like just a subject matter expert, they might know all the facts and stuff, but you don't really get to feel what the families are going through and how much it impacts them. And that has a much deeper draw, I think, to a lot of people when you can actually speak to the family member and they can tell you, what they've gone through and how much this person meant to them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of the things that I find most appealing about your show. That you're not just reading the public records, which is one thing that I myself do with a lot of anytime that I'm talking about missing persons. A lot of it is I'm drawing from the public records, the newspapers, the things that
Right.
are available to everybody. You guys are in contact with the family members, advocates, friends of them. It gives a more personal approach to it. And
Right.
And you hear a lot of things that you don't see in the newspapers or the articles online. You actually hear it from the people involved. So I think that's pretty awesome for people to be able to listen to.
Right. And because we do this stuff live too, I mean, before we did pre-recordings, but we started doing it live. It gives a chance for one, the people hearing the story to directly interact with the either the family member or whatnot and ask questions immediately. Also, at least for our podcast, I think it gives a lot of reassurance to the family members, because we have a really supportive group of people that watch our show, a lot of caring and loving people, always showing support. So that also, I think, helps the morale of the family members.
And a lot of times the people watching were previous guests as well. So they
Right.
respect us enough and respect what we did for their family that they're on trying to support other families in the same situation. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it's turned into a really wholesome sort of cycle as far as return viewers.
yeah, I noticed that the other day being in the live chat for your YouTube podcast the other night. You definitely have a very engaged audience they're always offering something. And that was one thing that I was really from the start of the stream when we were talking about Russell Burnett's case, multiple people chiming in with either information or questions or things like that throughout the entirety of the stream. And that's something that I don't see when it comes to true crime podcasts. I don't see that level of dedication and engagement. How did you build that sort of community? Did that happen organically, or was that something you guys kind of fostered?
Well, I think just the way we presented the show, and we gave a space for people to be open and honest and express their opinions. We aren't quick to just shut someone off or block them or anything like that from their statements. However, we have in the past if some knucklehead on YouTube is saying something that is absolutely
if someone's being egregious and but for the most part we will, if someone does have a question that's maybe kind of risque, we'll let them ask that and we'll highlight it because we use StreamYard, and so we can bring the comment directly up onto the screen and ask, so everyone can sort of see what we're responding to. But yeah, for the most part, we try to let people ask their questions, but we also ask the family members or whoever the guest is beforehand, what's out of bounds, what's off limits, what questions can't be asked. And that way we know beforehand we won't highlight those questions or anything that sort of goes close to that part of the conversation.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I could see how that would be, because if you've got somebody, you can't really control what your chat's going to say. Right.
Right. And if it's in the chat, that's one thing. As long as it's not egregious, we'll usually just we'll let it sit there. But yeah, again, for the most part, it's not too often we run into that because,
yeah,
people are pretty good.
I would say about 2% of our comments are anything negative or anything weird like that.
And sometimes that's from maybe someone who else's family who's involved, who might be a suspect, or they've had a disagreement. We will get that. Sometimes we'll get bombarded a little bit with people who saw that it was happening and they don't like the person involved. So they might try to come in and talk some shit a little bit.
Yeah.
But
have you had any incidents there where somebody would contact you? Because I know that like you said, some people, if they're in disagreement with you, they're gonna say one thing. Have you ever had a family reach out to you and
Oh
correct
yeah.
something, or yeah?
Like Stephanie Damron case, the little 13-year-old girl went missing from New Sweden, Maine, September 24th, 2024. Her dad was on our podcast at one point, and he said a lot of things. And then later on, we had follow-up podcasts on her case, and he did email us and basically tell us that, maybe some of these things are out of line, or you shouldn't be saying this type of stuff and whatever. But for the most part, everyone's pretty positive with what they reach out to us with.
So he had come on, and then after the fact was
On
like,
a later episode, we'd covered the case again with the neighbors, and he does not like his neighbors. He doesn't like what they have to say about the case. So he made his opinion clear through the messaging.
I see. Okay, that I'm tracking there. Yeah, because that case, that one seemed like a minefield. That every aspect of it that I was reading when it came to dealing with the family and the people around the case, it felt like it was very thin ice to be treading on. And
For sure.
I mean, I know
we're actually like the first sort of thing that he'd gone on to speak to anyone about, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're like one of the few that I think he did one other thing with like a national TV show or something, but that was about it. So we had him on there for an hour. He said a lot of stuff people used against him. So he didn't care for that either.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the risk that you take when it's, I understand them wanting to pass the word out, but I see that nowadays happen in other cases and other podcasts and stuff where people they might go on with the best of intentions. And I don't even put it on like the hosts or anything like that, but it's like sometimes you're putting information out there that can either alter the perspective or people are going to be looking at it in a different way, Right.
When we bring people on too, like, this kind of goes into a slightly different direction, but when we bring people on, we have a little spiel that we go over with like a list of do's and don'ts, so how we're going to sort of conduct things. And, one of the big things we say is, we use terms like, I think, in my opinion, or I assume, to avoid direct accusations, but we're all allowed to have our own opinions. And it's, even despite that, just the stuff that you may say sometimes is probably bound to piss off somebody. We've been threatened with legal action quite a few times. One of them was from Canada, so good luck. Like, I don't know what you think you're going to do for Canada, but
yeah.
Yeah,
at the
end of the day too, and this is something that, we want to support the families and what they're going through, but at the end of the day, we're there for the person who's missing,
Right.
So we advocate to try and get these cases solved, and get the word out there. And if some of the family members don't like some of the stuff that's being discussed, like, that's unfortunate. And sometimes it may paint them in a not so favorable light. Not that that's our goal, is to go out there like that, obviously. But it's all about trying to shed light on the case and maybe get some more information out there, and maybe someone will speak up and say something.
Right. Definitely try to generate some tips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a valuable thing. And you guys have definitely started to, you've got a good platform to put the word out. I see pretty much every time, as soon as somebody is reported missing in Maine, you guys are almost the first ones that I see posting about it almost every time. And looking at your backlog, you've talked about a lot of the most, like, the largest cases that I can think of when it comes to, especially missing people in the last few years that were ones that popped up in the news cycle. We were just talking a little bit ago about the Ayla Reynolds case and stuff like that. When you guys are you're doing so much on the ground work when it comes to that, and it's usually fresh. You're talking to people like very quickly. Not really. I'm not saying you're like immediately as soon as they're, missing, but
like
So
the
you're-
Jeffrey Damron
So you're
case.
saying we're ambulance chasers?
I was gonna say-
No,
I was gonna
I'm
say, you make
actually
it sound like
not.
ambulance
I was
chasers.
going to credit you, but I was going to ask, what's your kind of, when do you decide, okay, this is something that we not just putting the word out that this person is missing, but we're going to start talking to people involved?
Yeah,
Kind
I
of where do you
definitely-
draw the line?
I think we definitely try to wait a little bit because, I mean, you know, like the young lady that just went missing from Auburn the other day, reportedly she was down in Massachusetts somewhere. Her card had been used, and I considered like having her husband on, but within 36 hours she's found. So she's found, she's home, she's safe. So I don't want to go ahead and do something like that and then have them, you know, come up within a couple hours.
Right. The easiest thing to do up
Yeah.
front is you know, just share the story or do the poster. And I have to say, this is like the Facebook side of things. That's all Travis. I don't ever get on Facebook. I'm terrible about it, but Travis is always making posters. He's always reaching out to the families.
Mhm.
He's the main line of communication for people when it comes to getting them on the show and stuff like that. But you know, he's always really cautious about how soon is too soon to reach out to them, you know, because it is the you know, sharing the story, making a flyer for them, and he'll ask them sometimes too, like, hey, do you want me to make a flyer? And get it out there, and it usually gets a lot of shares. But it's, yeah, you don't want to reach out and offer someone immediately after to be on the show, because like, you know, like you're saying, makes us look like ambulance chasers, and that's not it. That's obviously not the point of it. The point is just to get the stories out. And just something you mentioned, that, you know, the bigger stories that we've talked about, that kind of happens, but we actually usually try to aim for the stories that people don't talk about. You know, there's and unfortunately those are the ones that don't have a lot of views on our channel, you know.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. But that was sort of the point of all this in the first place, is, you know, talk about the things that no one else is talking about. And research on some of these things is really difficult, because at most you might have like one news article sometimes, and that's it. Like there might be a what is this, Charlie Project? There might be a bit more information on there, on those websites. But sometimes you only have like, you know, 2, 3, 4 websites to look at, maybe a minute and a half video from some news agency. And you know, so there's not a whole lot to go on.
That's why it's
Absolutely.
important that we have the family members on, tell the story, because like Jeff's saying, especially these less known cases, there's not a lot out there. So you're hearing it directly from the family. They're, like, as Jeff stated earlier, they're showing you their emotions and how they're feeling. It definitely pulls at the heartstrings. I mean, Jeff's a big dude, and it seems like he has no personality at all sometimes. But he gets teary-eyed sometimes when someone's telling a story.
Yeah, you especially, like family means a lot to me. So, and,
Yeah.
you know, so that is really hard, having like a son or a father or something like that come on and, you know, talking about that real raw emotional like feelings they're having. And some of it springs up too from, you know, it could have been 20, 30 years ago, and it's still, you know, it's still so real and right now for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those cases that, I mean, I know what you mean, because looking at some of the cases, I didn't get into research. Well, I can't say I didn't get into researching any of them, but I didn't start covering any true crime, missing persons, or anything like that on my show until recently. And a big part of it was because of that exact reason, is because of that human element, that it's like, I'm a softie when it comes to like so many of these stories of the people that just seemingly get overlooked, and it just goes nowhere for years. I call it small town syndrome, where they're literally a victim of the fact that they just lived in the wrong place at the wrong time, and there was not enough for people around that would have cared. And that happens so much in Maine, and it's hard to see it, because I'm sure you guys read this all the time. You'll see a case and it's like, you can almost paint the picture of exactly what happened, but there's that one element that's missing that They just don't do anything, or we don't have that right piece of information, or that right person isn't nearby.
So many cases like that.
Yeah, there's the big trends that pop up in most of our cases. One is like police inactivity, like they messed up one way or another, or didn't pursue things fast enough. And the problem with a lot of stuff we cover too is there's still quote unquote an active case, so you can't even get information about it. So they won't release that. Another topic that pops up a lot is mental health problems and drug abuse. And people with either of those really get the short end of the stick. If someone has a mental health issue or drug addiction issue, and they go missing, it seems like resources just seem to shut down immediately for them.
Yeah. I see that as a like more and more often it's the people that need it the most that kind of get overlooked. I look back at some of the older cases, like the people that just go missing because they wandered off trail, things like that. You'll see these massive manhunts that are set up for them. You'll have hundreds of people that are deployed. You'll have search and rescue will be out there for weeks at a time. Meanwhile, you see somebody like you guys were talking about the other day, Russell. He only gets brought up once a year, if that, usually around hunting season or right at the end of the thaw. It'll usually come up. People will be like, hey, keep it mentioned out or whatever.
You had a connection to him, right?
Yeah. So I actually lived with his mother for years. She used to live with my family. And so I knew him through her. And he was small town local boy. Everybody around knew him. They might not necessarily have the best of opinions of him in some cases, but at the same time, I didn't see a ton of people up until he went missing. He was not a person that was like a subject of conversation often. And then, his mother had already moved out at the time that he had went missing. I know his son had passed away previous to that, not too long before he went missing himself.
Right.
And,
I think
obviously
it was coming up on the year anniversary.
Yeah.
It was pretty close just before. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that definitely weighed into as far as people knew he had a reputation for having some substance issues and stuff, as is, unfortunately common for the area. And then talking to his family and stuff like that, they were basically like, oh, well, he'll probably just kind of show back up, And that was the assumption for the longest time, was he was just going to pop back up one day until they kind of realized that he wasn't. And, people brought it up on your stream, the rumors of, everything.
Right.
I think everybody that's lived around here has heard those same rumors. And it's not even just him. It's like that seems to be a thing with a lot of these cases, is that there's so many people that talk about it, and it's just kind of like a thing that flies under the radar.
It's weird. Like, I get rumors, but who starts them? The same with they were fed to pigs. You hear that about
40, all the time.
40% of the time on these missing people cases, or the wood chipper thing. That's not the first time I've heard that before. Look, who comes up with these? If they're not true, who comes up with these rumors? It makes no sense. Like you and I talking there, we're going to say, "Oh, that's what happened."
It's the telephone game all over, right? Where just someone says like, "Oh, this is," or, it's the easiest way to explain what happened, why they're missing is, pigs ate them, or they got sent to a wood chipper, and that makes it through enough people. And it's like, oh, this guy thinks that this guy did it, and then it goes to another person. This guy said that dude did it. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm not discrediting like the his case, but this is just sort of how that stuff snowballs.
No, for sure. I definitely can see that. And it seems to be the case, because it's like, you can't point to any one specific person that has reliable information, but everybody heard it from somebody.
Right.
And I've had that happen with other things that I've investigated in the past, where it would be like, I'd be asking about something specific and somebody would be like, oh, well, so-and-so knows because this person did that. It's like, okay, well, where have you getting that from? Oh, somebody told me. Who's somebody? can you give me a source? Like, can you give me one person that's willing to like go on record and say, I saw this thing? Never, almost never. But everybody knows somebody. It's
And I want to thank you for taking the time to cover those missing persons cases. And I know your podcast more about the mysterious things and cryptids and paranormal, which Jeff and I are both into as well. Which is why I started listening to your podcast to begin with. And then when I heard you start talking about missing people, I was like, oh, maybe we should get together and do something. And then literally like a week later, I think you posted on your page saying, hey, if anyone wants to be a guest on our show, it's a perfect time to ask them to collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been catching up on your show. I've been working backwards. So, like your most recent episodes, I've been just going back through the Spotify podcast playlist. And it was one of those things where I realized like a lot of the cases that you guys were covering were ones that I was familiar with, but you've definitely got a lot more in depth because you have that connection to the families and things like that. There was a few of the cases that you guys covered that I definitely wanted to ask your opinions on. One of the big ones, aside from Russell, because that one we've already kind of discussed, and you just had that on the show the other day. But there was the case of Kim Moreau. Sorry.
Kim Moreau, yeah.
Yeah. That was one that came up recently. I had done a short thing on it. I don't understand sometimes how so much of a case can be so clear. And yet there, again, like I said, there's that one element that is just not there. And then it just goes unanswered for decades.
Yeah. So for those that don't know the case, Kim Moreau from Maine disappeared May 10th, 1986. She was supposed to go to her prom that night. Instead, her and her boyfriend, Mike Staples, had just broken up on that Friday night. So she went out with her friend Rhonda Breton, along with two older guys. So these girls were 17, 18 years old at the time. And then the guys were 25, 26 years old. That's Brian Enman and Darren Jowdery. So the four of them spent all day. They were doing like recreational drugs. I'm guessing marijuana, although I don't know if it's ever been said what it was they were doing for drugs. Drinking beer and hanging out and just having a good time, whatever. And then supposedly Darren had to go to work, so he got dropped off at the mill. Rhonda got dropped off at her house, and then Brian brought Kim back home to Kim's house. Kim walked in to use the restroom. She took her jacket and her pocketbook, left them there at the house, told her sister, the last words her sister said to her. So she tells her sister, I'm going to go for another ride. I'll be right back. Last thing that her sister Karen says to her is, you better be home before mom and dad or they're going to kill you. Like, can you imagine poor Karen have to live with that her whole life, after the disappearance? Her parents would literally cross the street at the VFW hall, when she got in that white car. I'm trying to remember if it was a Camaro or what it was.
I think it was a Trans Am, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
That Brian Enman was driving. He claims they went downtown, they hung out, they I don't know if some of this is public. Maybe I shouldn't say it, but the rumor is, so after DNA became a thing, he changed the story and told Dick, which is Kim's father, that they had consensual sex that night. So it's almost a way of him trying to, in my opinion, cover up what he did. So anyway, they had relations, and then he brought her to the end of the road, which she's deadly afraid of the dark. As a kid, her grandparents lived across the street. They'd have to turn the light on just for her to walk over to see them. Yeah. But supposedly that night, she wanted to walk home from the bottom of the hill and walk about a mile up to their house in the dark with no jacket on. It's May 10th. I think it was like 40 degrees that night, so it's chilly, and never seen again.
Yeah. And so much of that to me is like, it should be so cut and dry and so obvious, and especially in hindsight. Maybe I know at the time police probably looked at things a lot differently back then. I'm sure investigators were probably not assuming the things that we do today, looking back at that, hindsight being 2020.
Well, and I wonder, so the night she went missing, Chief Farrington's son had a party at his house where minors were drinking alcohol and stuff, allegedly. And I wonder if that was some of the reason why things weren't brought to light because Kim had attended that party as well. So I kind of wonder if things were brushed under the rug, and not necessarily that the Farringtons had anything to do with her disappearance. I don't think they did, but the reality of the situation I don't think was ever brought out because of that.
Yeah, it gives them a plausible reason to slow walk certain parts of it.
Mm-hmm. And then the Trans Am was found in a Farmington police officer's backyard 15 years later, when they finally decide to look at that car to see if they can find any evidence of Kim being in the vehicle or anything else.
Wow.
A Farmington police officer happened to have purchased that car. That might have been coincidental, but it is weird.
I mean, coincidences only go so far, honestly, right? Like, right. I mean, I only believe in them to the certain degree, and that's a little, I mean, that's interesting.
You get enough coincidences, and eventually they become a pattern.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, for sure. Yeah, that's one of the cases that I recently covered. And again, I think it was her sister had reached out to me because I had the date of the disappearance incorrect, because the public record is not correct on that.
What did you have, May 11th?
I had the 9th. Was
9th.
What the public record had for some odd reason. And she mailed me. She was super nice about it. She was like, hey, just an FYI, everybody gets it wrong. And I was like happy to change it because I'd rather be right and accurate about the information. I'm trying to get their story out there, but I also like want it to be the accurate story, especially for the family's sake. They're going to be the ones.
They're a wonderful family. Actually, I got to go over. They had a remembrance for Kim a couple weeks ago, so I got to go over to the cemetery and be with the family. It was a public event, but it just worked out that I thought I had to work that Saturday and I didn't have to, and so I got to run over and say hi. So that was nice.
Yeah, no, that's super nice that you got to be face-to-face contact with them, because I one thing that I apologize to her for, and I think you guys have probably have had to deal with this. Sometimes you don't want to approach the family or all of the family with certain things to ask them outright, because it's like, especially with the older case, I don't really want to reopen old wounds with some of them. And you never really know if they're going to be receptive to a random podcaster or a random, person writing an article or a book or etc., reaching out to them after a certain period of time. And with some of these cold cases, it's like, that's all you have left to do, because there isn't a lot of information. Like you said, there's only one story. Hearing so much more information from you about like her case, there's a lot more to be told than anything you're going to read on just looking her up in the databases.
Right. And I think a lot of these families just want their loved one's stories told and heard, and their names still have meaning. The one thing Jeff and I think we do well is we allow them just to tell the story. They talk about the missing person or the murder victim as a person and who they were and growing up. I always like to start that way so the audience can understand who they were and how important they are to their family.
Right. It humanizes them, so it's not just a story that we're talking about, it's a person that we're talking about.
Absolutely. No, that makes so much sense. And I think that's what probably they're seeing. I think that's what your audience is seeing. And that's why you're much more grounded with your approach to things, because you're not treating it like it is just subject matter. It's not a matter of you're just farming it for some entertainment value or something like that. You're actually involved, and because you care about the person and telling their story accurately.
I tell people all the time, we're not making any money of this. We're actually losing money doing this, but it's something that we're both passionate about doing, and we want to do this for the families.
Have you had anybody accuse you of that though? Because I've had that, and I'm nothing. And I've had people be like, "You're only doing that. It's because you want to have views." And I'm like, "No, but okay, cool. You think that?" Like,
yeah, we've been accused of, I don't even know the whole list, but it was that we're first, like what you said, like we're doing this just to make money, which we're not. like, I think every like 4 months or 5 months, we might get like $100 from YouTube. And
And StreamYard's
If you're lucky.
$45 a month.
right. And it costs us
Yeah.
more, like so much more
Program.
than that for like anyways. But also that we've allegedly like asked for money from families.
Yeah, who said that?
That didn't that come from that, what's his name?
Oh yeah, that weird guy.
Yeah,
He
just
who
one
shall
guy
not
in
be
particular,
named.
yeah, made a bunch of like crazy accusations about us. But
But he's done so with everyone else too, and he's been banned all over the place. And
yeah,
I don't,
so
I don't believe he's
This
messing with
wasn't
It-
an
it-
isolated thing. It was just they have a habit of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
But I mean, it sucks. It does kind of hurt, like even if it is from a piece of shit to say it, for someone to make an accusation like that, because it does, depending on how many people see it, it doesn't really matter. Like that's a wretched thing to try to do, to like try to profit off from someone else's, like a family suffering. And we've talked about this a few times before. There does, for whatever reason, I guess like the true crime sort of sphere can be kind of cliquey. Like there's certain groups that want to work together and be friendly with each other, but then some people, I guess, they shun them and they don't want them around, which seems really weird to me. It's one thing if people are like blatantly wrong or, spreading misinformation, I guess, but at the end of the day, like us and you and anyone else in this sphere, like should be here for the same reason, which is to get closure for the families, to try and help get these stories out there, get the cases closed, get more attention to them, just to help. So it seems bizarre that people would be fighting over anything in the first place.
Yeah, it is a very strange thing, and I think it's part of like internet culture nowadays as a whole, and kind of how that seems to everybody assumes everybody's doing it for profit. Everybody sees every picture that's posted online. Oh, you got to be doing this for the views. You got to be doing it for that reason, and people really have a hard time of detaching from that. Sometimes because maybe they look at it that way with everything they do. I don't know. It's usually a reflection of themselves.
Yeah, projection maybe, right?
Good point.
Exactly. It's like I don't think anybody is covering true crime right now or starts out covering stuff like you guys do, being like, "Oh, I'm gonna make it big off of this." Like nobody is doing that. If they are, they really got to figure out a better way of going about business, because that's not. There's easier ways out there.
Yeah, and like, to talk about this sort of stuff is like stressful on the soul too, right? Like constantly, like talking about like just horrendous cases and like the stuff that can happen to children or like just innocent, like wholesome people. Like it takes a toll.
Oh, for sure. Like I've told that to my fiance, especially in the last 6 months or so, where I've started to cover more of that sort of real life content. I could read about the weirdest ghost stories, cryptids, whatever paranormal freakiness you want to talk about. Days on end, it would never bother me. I dive into some of these, reports and, case files and stuff like that. And yeah, there are times that I'll be writing one and I'll just have to step away and kind of be like, wow, that was a lot more than anything that anybody should have to read through. And, you do it because you want to be able to tell the story. It does matter, but it's not for the faint of heart. It's not something that somebody does for fun.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it can be absolutely horrendous.
A recent one that kind of did that to me. I don't want to butcher her name because her family does follow me and they're super nice. Victoria Picto Noyes, I think was her last name.
Yeah, Picto Noise. Yep.
Yeah. So reading her case was one of those situations where it's like it should be so. There were so many times that somebody could have done something. And those are the ones that hurt the most in a way to read, is the ones that at any point, if somebody had just like somebody in that hospital or somebody in that, outside of that bar, somebody that was close by had just intervened for that minute, who knows how much would have changed.
Oh, exactly. And she's a case that we haven't covered yet. I have spoken to Francis. I can't remember if it's her brother or her uncle, a couple different times to try to get him or one of the family members on the podcast. So that's definitely one that I want to cover. So I don't know a lot about her case other than just what you can read online.
Yeah.
It is. You're exactly right, though. If more people had the guts to stand up and help those that are, vulnerable or in a situation that they can't handle, maybe a dude is beating the crap out of a woman. Well, as a dude, you should stand up and get in the middle of that.
Yeah. There's, I mean, I know, again, we live in a place where, I'm sure the statistics when it comes to domestic abuse and assault and all that stuff in this state. And it's, we've always had bad statistics when it comes to like what happens behind closed doors and stuff. And it's like so many of those cases you'll see somebody just goes missing and it's like they don't even get reported for months. They just disappear off the face of the planet.
We've covered a few of them like that.
Ateen Shah, disappeared. And then 2 months later, after her family was trying to locate her, her husband decides to file a missing person report. And actually, I think her family actually filed the report.
What was he had some crazy claim that like she went on a cruise or something?
Yeah. So he said that she went and started working on a Carnival cruise.
Oh, started working. Right.
Yeah, that's what he told the cops, even though her passport had never been used, no credit cards ever been used. Told her family that story as well. No, that's what it was. He told the family the story of the Carnival cruise. Told the cops that she went back to Indonesia, where she was from, and clearly she wasn't because her family's there looking for her.
Right.
Just bizarre.
Yeah. A similar one, Guy Carmel. It's an older case. It was from the mid 2000s, I think, and similar situation. The guy seemingly walked out into his yard one day and then just disappeared off the face of the planet.
And his wife doesn't report him missing for like a year, I think.
It was an insane. I think he went missing in October and didn't get reported until November the following year, or something ridiculous.
Yeah, something crazy.
The neighbors are just like, "Oh, we thought he just went to Florida for the summer or something like that." And it's like, it puts things into perspective because you're like, how easy would it be for like, any person to just go missing under that circumstance,
Another weird thing is my neighbor. I don't know if he knows I do this podcast, but I was talking to him the other night and he's talking about how his brother went missing. I'm like, oh, who's that? It says Steven Schlosser. He ended up being found like 10 days later in Snowbank in Augusta, Whitefield. But it's just weird, like how close these stories are to home. Like, he's literally 2 houses down from me, and we just started talking about something, and he brought that up.
Wild. Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't, because I used to live in Florida, and I remember being down there. It was like every day you turn on the news and you see a dozen missing people. It was just, that's the nature of the beast when your population is like that.
Yeah.
Up here, it's not the numbers, but it still feels so much more personal and intimate because they are like your neighbors. They're people that you usually know.
Right.
In that vein, is there any cases that really, and you guys have covered a lot of them, you've been doing this a while. Actually, how long have you been doing locating the lost?
Over 6 years. It's like 6.5 years.
Yeah. So you guys have definitely been through probably a lot of stuff. Are there any cases just off the top of your head that just really eat at you? That just, they're in the back of your mind?
Jeff, I'll let you go first. You don't have any? Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, thanks for that. No, I mean there's a lot that are just sort of like that Ateen Shah one. That are just, there seems like a pretty obvious answer. Like why is XYZ not happening? Why is this person still like out and about, free to live their life? Yeah, I mean, I don't have any in particular.
For me, there's a lot of them, but Jeff already knows this too, but
Oh yeah.
to tie in with your paranormal podcast that you have going on here. So Ayla Reynolds, she's the whole reason why we started this, or at least for me, I started this podcast, right? And 5 days after she went missing, I had a dream about where she was. And I'll just say it on here so that if anyone's ever in that area, they can go down and look for her. So if you go through Colby College, take a left onto County Road. County Road is then there's an overpass of I-95. So within that area of land, the strip between Mislonsky Stream and County Road is where I had this dream of her. So about 2 years later, I told my wife about this dream, told her where it was. 2 years later, I'm driving in my car. I've got my 1.5-year-old daughter in the back seat. We drive under the overpass, and she says, "Daddy, there's a baby in the trees." It's like, what? So I said, "Is it a guy or is it a boy or girl?" So it's a girl. She misses her mommy.
Oh my God. Wow.
Either she was picking up on, what I had going on in my head thinking about Ayla as I passed through there, or she legitimately,
wow.
She saw something or whatever.
That's wow. Okay, that's
the other thing that's crazy about that too, right? Is like, Ayla only lived like an eighth of a mile from where you were, your house at the time.
No, we actually lived in Oakland, so she's about 10 minutes away.
Oh, okay.
We ended up moving in after she disappeared. We moved in like right around the corner from her home. Yeah.
Right.
I tried to stop and talk to Phoebe while she's mowing her lawn one day, but she didn't want to talk to me. She's not my biggest fan.
Yeah, I mean, that whole case, that's one of those ones that I have a very hard time with, because that's I have 2 daughters, and seeing that situation and stuff, it's like, I don't understand how. I think everybody kind of has their own impressions of what they think happened and stuff like that. I won't get into the details there.
I think everyone has the same impression or the same idea of what happened.
Yeah, I think pretty much that is the case, and I can't, as a father, I can't wrap my head around it. It's one of those things. Just it's been over a decade, and it still just does not sit with me in a way that I could really fully wrap my head around.
Yeah, but there's so many cases that mean a lot to me. You mentioned Kim Moreau's case earlier. That family's just a beautiful family. You covered Ludger Belanger's case on your podcast.
Yeah.
His wife Linda is a wonderful soul. She is the greatest. She is, for the longest time, was on our intro for our podcast.
Oh yeah, she was our very first.
Yeah, the very first
podcast
episode.
Very first episode.
No kidding. I'm gonna have to go back and find that one. That sounds like an awesome episode.
Yeah, we covered that one twice. Ludger's case twice. Season 1, which was our trial by fire period of audio and what we wanted to do. And
she's still her audio bite is still on the outro.
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
Right.
Yeah,
I think so,
yeah. Her.
That was
just a lot of cases that mean a lot to us.
Yeah, that was a interesting one. I think that one, when I first started to cover true crime, that was one of the first ones that I read about, and it kind of was in a theme of cases where it seemed like it was just all either people that were out hunting or people that just were out on hikes, things like that. Which at first, that was the ones I was most interested in, right? Because for me, it's like I'm talking about like spooky paranormal stuff in the woods. So that sort of stuff is going to come more naturally.
Unfortunately, the worst creatures are other humans, I think. And
exactly,
the case of Ludger's case, that should have been solved by now, and we're pretty sure who was involved with that.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Is the scariest things I've come across are what real humans do to other real humans, and there's never going to be any topping that. I can write anything, I can find any story. Stephen King cannot make up the stuff that people do.
I got a good one for you.
You can't top like human evilness.
I actually wrote a couple that I wanted to cover with you. So, have you heard of Bob Smith? His disappearance. No. So he's called the missing hunter. And And this
Is
happened.
this one we just did a few months ago?
Yeah, I think about 6-7 months ago. So he was 70 years old. Him and his wife go hunting, and there's a blaze between Garfield and then township, whatever, E17, whatever that township was.
Right.
So they put a blaze so you knew where the land barriers were, the town lines. So Bob's gonna. It's illegal, guys, but he's. I assume he's trying to push deer toward his wife, right? So she sees him walk across the blaze. He, head down, walks across the blaze, goes into the woods. About 20 minutes later, she hears a gunshot. So she assumes he shot at a deer. So she sits there and waits and waits and waits. This happened November 18th, 1997. She waits and waits. No Bob. Other family members heard the gunshot as well. Family all goes there. They all searched in the area where they saw him go into the woods. He's 70 years old. I wouldn't imagine he's walking for 30 miles. Not found. Game wardens come up, still not found. Bob Smith has never been located since. So that's just really weird. Not even his rifle or anything. No clothing. It's almost like the missing 411 cases that.
Well, there was a claim that later in the night there were more shots heard, right? But they couldn't tell where or when.
Maybe he was signaling, because that's what you're supposed to do, is
like
fire
3 shots.
3 shots in the air if you get lost. Or are you aware of the
crazy
Diana Esty case?
Yes, that's one actually I just started to read up on recently and was writing about, and that is a fascinating case as well. Lay that on us. We'd love to hear
so
that.
we covered that case a couple times too, but she was 71 years old. She seemingly, they're not sure when she went missing. Around November 1st, 2021, she went missing. No one's really sure because she didn't live with anyone else. However, somehow she walked out the door, left her pocketbook there. She left her wallet, left her keys, left her vehicle. Lights were on, TV was on, and Diana's nowhere to be found. And they've done searches in the area. They never found her. There's some rumors about maybe someone hit her with a vehicle or whatever, but you would have thought there would have been blood or something at the scene.
Right.
But nothing. She's another one that just kind of walked into nowhere.
So that was one, and if I could be misremembering part of this, I think part of one of the weirder things, if it's the right one I'm thinking of, is didn't she have some sort of a medical condition where she probably wouldn't have gone very far?
She 71 years old to begin with, but she had not a strong ticker, I think, but
I seem to remember she was regularly medicating. So this is not like she would have just one day just like went on a trip or something, or had somebody just pick her up. And she was known to just go, she would work at the town office or something like that. I think she was active at the community center. Nobody lived around her, but at the same time, like, she wasn't somebody that would just go out and just leave. Like, she had accountabilities, right? And
the neighbors didn't hear anything. No one saw anything.
Right, her front door was unlocked, and I think the lights on.
Ajarred almost, wasn't it? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. I know that it was one of the neighbors, right, that noticed that she was missing in the first place. I think it was because the light, and I think it was one of those things like she never leaves the light on. That stood out. It was something like that.
So that's a weird one that you can't pinpoint it on somebody necessarily doing it. And then I know you covered Kurt Newton's case, 4-year-old boy. Missing September 1st, 1975 from the Tannis Point campground. That's a weird case too.
That's one of those ones that's like, unless somebody is just outright lying, I do not understand it, because people all around.
Little boy chasing after his dad. His dad's going to cut wood or whatever. He's on his tricycle pedaling around the campground. Multiple people saw him, waved to him, whatever. And they heard him saying, "Dad, Dad," like he was trying to follow his father. The last girl to see him, her stepfather or father, is the one that found his tricycle and thought it was just trash and threw it in the dump, or that's his statement. Which that always kind of bothered me.
This
guy would find this little trike and throw it in the dump.
I mean, it's almost would have been a pretty new tricycle, I would assume. Like,
To me, it's like if someone saw me putting that in the dumpster, I got to come up with a cover story. So this is my cover story. Like, so that
Yeah.
always bothered me. But no trace of a shoe or any clothes or anything like that. Like, so it wasn't like it was an animal attack or whatever. Unfortunately, it looks like someone probably abducted him.
yeah, it's kind of hard to deny, and I don't like to dive into the missing 411 stuff because like I have my own opinions on where that's come from, and like honest full disclosure, 99 out of 100 of those cases are fully explainable, and every single one of them that I see, especially when it comes to like the way they're portrayed in the books and stuff, they want you to go a certain direction with all of them, right? And I understand that for like you're trying to sell books, but if you're talking trying to solve cases, that's not really conducive to being helpful, especially not for somebody that is doing that to that degree. But when I look at the Kurt Newton case, that is one of those ones that it's like, where did it go? They were right there in the campground, people all around. Unless somebody walked by and picked him up, but even then, somebody's going to hear something. Those are the weirdest ones.
You'd think, yeah.
And there's no way to really explain it aside from, I mean, you can say, oh, well, maybe somebody like grabbed him and like covered his mouth and ran off into the bushes or something. But it's not like people weren't immediately searching. Like his family was right there. This is not, oh, he wandered off on his own. He was right there with them. It's those sort of ones are the ones that, when I started out covering that sort of stuff, those were the ones that I was like, okay, I want to stick to covering those because they are interesting. But then you don't have anywhere you could go from that because there's no further information. It's just that's where the trail ended, somewhere in the middle of the woods.
And what would be interesting to see if, with genealogical DNA that they have available now, if somehow he's found that way, either he grew up, didn't realize he was a kidnapped kid, had a family of his own or whatever, and then say his kid decides to go on there and put in their DNA.
Right.
Yeah. Like, oh, I got a sibling over here in Manchester, Maine. That's where the family's from.
Yeah.
This is
Didn't
weird.
that recently just happen in Arizona? I want to say that there was a woman that had just recently been found in Arizona, and she'd been missing for like 30 some odd years.
Oh, yes. She was abducted as a child.
Yeah. And it's rare, but it happens. And, you can always hope in those cases that is what happened, Why it would happen that way, who knows? I mean, people
that's
are
the
weird.
thing. Like, you hope that they just went away to this couple that couldn't have children and they were well taken care of. But the reality is probably that's not the story.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, fellas, definitely been great chatting with you so far. I don't want to keep you too long. We're approaching an hour, but one part I always like to get everybody's opinions and see if they have any stories to tell. You guys are in the area and you are familiar with some. You enjoy the paranormal yourselves. Have you ever had anything unexplainable happen to you that you'd like to tell us about? Travis, you already got us a good one with that in the A-list story. That one really gave me chills. So,
well, I mean, my daughter probably won't ever hear this, but my daughter used to say really weird stuff. She was my youngest, and my older daughter was in high school, and unfortunately, she had a friend that jumped off a bridge. And the night of that little girl's not the wake, but the celebration of life that the family did for her. I don't want to say her name, so I'll make up a name. I'll call her Amanda. So the night that my wife and all my 3 kids were all together, we had dinner and stuff. And so then my wife took my oldest to this celebration of life for her friend. So me and my other 2 daughters are driving home, and we drive past that bridge where this Amanda girl jumped off from. And my youngest daughter says, what did she say? Oh, I see Amanda. So I said, who's Amanda? She says, I'm Amanda, Daddy. Like that was just freaky the way like her saying that.
Oh man.
And I don't know if I don't think we really necessarily talked about it at the dinner table that night or anything. It was just weird, the timing and everything. So that kid used to come up with some weird stuff sometimes. Kids are weird.
They are. I remember my oldest actually. We were living in this apartment down by an airport years ago. And one day, just out of the blue, I got up that morning and I'd been getting her ready for school or whatever. And she was like, I'm so tired. I couldn't sleep last night. I'm like, why? And she's like, well, because of the zombie in my closet. Like, what do you mean zombie in my closet? She's like, yeah, there's like a guy in my closet. He looks like he's dead and he's a skeleton and he's a zombie.
Wow.
And she was like 4. I had no idea how she had ever even heard of a zombie before, let alone being able to describe something like that. So I just like looked at my girlfriend at the time. I was like, what, did you watch something with her or something like that? She's like, no. She's like, I don't watch stuff like that. She's like, I hate stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, I guess the kid's seeing stuff in her dreams. We're going to leave it at that. Good enough. Like, but yeah, kids are weird. Jeff, you had anything creepy happen to you?
Well, we we did we did a lot of ghost hunting stuff. We did Parafest for like 5 years, Travis?
8 years. 8 years.
Was it 8? Jesus Christ. Yeah, it was a paranormal convention that was held in
Vassalboro.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, just outside of Waterville. Yeah, well, yeah, we were the ones that put it on. We ran it, a bunch of vendor tables, and we had like people from the Ghost Hunters show and the Haunted Collector, and like we had quite a few people show up there. And at the end of the day, we would go split off into teams with other like ghost hunting groups in Maine, and search, do little sessions throughout different areas, and then after about an hour, we'd rotate so they could go to a different team. So there's quite a few things that happen in there. One of the weirder ones in the basement of this building, there was a big tunnel that ran in. It used to be a turbine that powered the mill, and it was tall enough where like I'm 6 feet tall and I could stand up like almost straight up. So this is a giant pipe underneath that fed the water through. And at the time there wasn't, any actual water running. They had it all blocked off from the stream. And but we'd go down there and we'd set up little experiments. And so a lot of the time, what we'd like to do is we'd just start recording. We would just listen, like ask a couple questions and then read it back. And one of the times that we were down there, I was down there with, I think, 2 ladies at the time, and I don't remember the exact questions that were asked, but behind me, like someone was whispering in my ear as she was asking questions, and it was like more breath than anything. Like, and it just freaked me the hell. No, I think it was a husband and wife is what it was, because the husband had heard it too. Yeah, there was some wild stuff that happened there.
That place is pretty cool.
Yeah, was that the mill in Vassalboro?
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say that is an incredibly haunted location. Like,
we've done a lot there.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time there. Like genuinely, months worth of time.
That's awesome. So you guys got to go in and out of that. So Parafest, you guys hosted it for 8 years, you said. What made you step away from that? Is it just a lot to plan and put all in the whole thing? Because that's the thing that most people that do that.
There's a lot to planning, and then you can never make, unfortunately, and I love our vendors, but you can never make the vendors happy. They were never happy with the space. We got so big, so we had to have people outside. Well, if it rained, we'd try to get them inside, squeeze them in where we can, and they were still upset. So, like, I get it. It's not the greatest venue. Now Jeff Witham puts on the Paranormal and Horror Con at the Civic Center. Like, that's a huge space.
Yeah,
Everyone has the same amount of space. It's a beautiful spot for them. It's not the same as doing it in a haunted place, but it's a cool venue.
Yeah.
To go along with, like, because you're into cryptids, right? Do you watch?
Yeah, absolutely.
You watch Expedition Bigfoot?
Yes, love it.
So we've also done for 3 years, 2 nights every year. We've put on a thing called Squatching and Skywatching. And so Ronnie LeBlanc comes up and he does Bigfooting with us up in.
Oh, I didn't know you put that on. Okay,
Yeah.
because every time that I've seen that pop up, usually you'll have one that's going on right around my birthday. And almost always I'll be like, I would love to get to go to that some year.
August and September. We didn't do it this year, even though Ronnie's like, oh, we should do it. I told him I want to take the year off, but maybe next year we'll do it again. But we got a huge, like a beautiful location. It's like 250 acres. There's no one within, 4 miles from that place, in one direction. There's a house down the road, but there's a lot of open space. So when we were there, we had some, we got tree knocks. We got some prints that were cast there. Ronnie's group down by the swamp. I don't know if you've seen, we put some stuff out about it, but had boulders being thrown into the swamp, like loud boulders. My brother captured something like looks like a figure walking through the swamp, like chest deep in the swamp. So that's usually a good time up there. Just a lot of work.
Wow. Yeah, the thing is like we have a lot of space for that, but because so much of it now is private land and stuff like that, it's like you're either fighting with the parks or you're fighting with private landowners to find good places like that. So the fact you got a location, that's awesome.
Do you follow the Maine Bigfoot Foundation?
Yeah.
So you should definitely go out with them sometime. They put on events about every 2 months. And it's a free thing where people just go out and go camping with them. Just bring your own food or whatever. But I've done a couple with them. I would like to do some more this summer. It's much easier to go to someone else's events than my own.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could absolutely understand that.
Funny, we were talking about this on Thursday because that's when he'd mentioned that we were coming on here. That was actually one of the points. I was like, oh, so someone else is responsible for everything. We just have to show up and talk.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it easy when you don't have to worry. You just hit buttons and then just wait for it to happen. It's much easier. I'm pretty excited to come on you guys' show on Thursday, honestly. For my listeners, that'll be a little bit removed from the point of recording because we do 1 episode a week and I'll be on your show live. So by the time y'all hear this, I'll have already been on their show and hopefully you got to tune in. I'll be posting about it tonight so everybody has the opportunity to watch live and stuff like that.
They can watch it back on YouTube or Facebook for 30 days. Facebook allows video to stay on for 30 days lives.
Oh, it does. I did not know that.
YouTube will be there forever under the live section.
Yeah.
That's where I watch most of your stuff is there, and I listen to the audio version on Spotify when I can. And definitely, I appreciate you guys coming on talking to me today. I'm very much looking forward to coming on your show a little later.
I can't wait to ask you some questions.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you don't blindside me and have me looking like a fool like last time I went on.
Really? What happened?
I went on to a buddy of mine's show, and he
was it? Who was it? Omar?
Right off. It was actually Tim Banal, a friend of mine. He's done a show for almost 30 years. He's been. Oh yeah, he works for Coast to Coast AM. He's done this stuff for forever, basically. Right? Yeah. So he reached out to me one day, and the first question he asked me is, he's like, so I wanted to ask you about the history of Acadia, and I'm like, okay, that's a very big topic to have be the first thing that you ask me on here. So I'm just kind of like, I'm trying to go over like a few hundred years history in like the course of like an introduction to the show. And I was like, he's like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to be such a hard one to answer. And I'm like, well, it's more because it's just so much. Yeah. It's not the question itself. It's a lot to cover in one podcast. Like it's kind of a whole show, but nonetheless, it's definitely been great having you guys on. I very much appreciate you guys taking the time to come and chat with me. Looking forward to coming on your show. Everybody that listens to my show, if you enjoy the true crime stuff, you're going to love Locating the Lost. It's such a just a fantastically produced show. You guys do a very great thing for the families that are involved, the missing people, the lost ones. You provide an invaluable service, and you're bringing their stories to light for so many people. Shining a lantern on it, like I tend to say about my own show, is like we want to cast light on the stories of others, and it keeps them alive in a special way, even if they're not able to be with us. So I appreciate that you guys are doing that. So glad that you were able to come on the show today. Before we get going, is there anything you guys would like to plug? Anything you got going on?
No, but I will say, Jeff loves this one too. If you watch us, we actually found someone live on air. So the guy had been missing from Rockland for 2.5 years, and somehow he ended up in California. This dude is in California watching our show. He's like, I know him. He lives right down the hall from me.
But note to this was like probably an hour before we went live. Someone reached out and said, I think I know that guy. Like, as we put up his picture. So we're like, no, it was just a few minutes before actually, I don't. And so we're like, well, we're already going live. Like, we're still going to talk to the family. So we just proceeded, the family started, the mother and sister was talking about him. And when they saw him last, and then the guy pops up, the neighbor pops up in our chat. He's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's my neighbor. So we put a link in there for him to join the live stream with us. And so we're all watching, not saying anything. Like, he's knocking, and he knocks for a long time. And then you hear the door open, and he turns the phone around, the camera phone around, and the dude is standing there looking at it, and all he says is, oh, hey, Mom. Like he'd been missing for 2 years, and his neighbor just happened to see that and saw it. And like, it was the most awkward, like, sort of reunion for someone that's been missing.
Where have you been? He goes, I've been around. I got a cat.
But she's like, what? Yeah. She's like, what happened to you or something like that? And he's like, oh, like my phone broke. And like, so that's it. He like lost that form of communication device, and then just like didn't tell anyone for.
Was he in his 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right there. I think everybody at some point in their 20s, you could just kind of blur out like a few years and nobody knows. Like,
I'm pretty sure that where he was staying was probably like not the best little hotel that you can find. I think there was some things being sold there and stuff.
Yeah, but you talk about it being a small world, and it's like on the literal other side of the country, and manages to like just, oh, hey, it's the guy that lives next door to me. Let me go get him right now.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely bizarre, and it was like it turned into like a 15-minute podcast because we found him. Okay, like one of the few happy endings to one of our podcasts. It's not, some poor child was like abused and dragged into the woods, and
right.
It was weird.
I mean, yeah, that's, I probably should have asked that. Have you had luck with people being found or like getting more information from the show?
Well, so not so much now, because a lot of people are making posters for missing people, but back, say 4 or 5 years ago, we're like the only ones making the posters back then. And so I think there's probably like 13, 14 people that were found just because we had put out the posters and shared the stories, and within, an hour or two. But it's like people that had just gone missing within the last 24 hours type of thing. Yeah. So whether it's anything we did or not, I don't know, but a lot of people saw our posters. I like to think we helped find them.
And there's been a couple of situations too where, and we can't prove this, but there's been a few times where we've talked about cases, one of these cases that no one else was talking about. It's been years, and then a few days or a couple weeks after our video goes up talking about this, suddenly like the case is moving again. Suddenly the cops are doing stuff and they're searching properties, and again, maybe it's just a coincidence, but it's happened a few
multiple
times.
Ateen Shaw, within 10 days of our podcast, state police were in there getting, bags of evidence out of her husband, Mike Shaw's house. Chandler Cole, who was a cop up there, we did a podcast on Eric Foote, who was missing, and Chandler Cole was the one that falsified a report saying that he dropped him off at the hospital, then went back in, changed the report, say he dropped him off at the gas station. Within like 3 days of our podcast, all of a sudden he's being arrested and charged with things for that. Who else was there? There was something else. I don't remember. There's a couple like that.
There's been a few like that. And even with some of the cases we covered in out of state too, where we'll discuss something and then suddenly there's stuff happening. But at the end of the day, it's about getting the stories out there and hopefully building some courage in someone to say something that maybe they should have said a long time ago.
That's all it takes is, one person hearing, that name mentioned and they hadn't heard it in a long time. Maybe it jogs memory. Maybe it finally convinces them it's time to speak about something that they, not wanted to for however long. And I guess that's kind of why I started covering it too, is just hoping somebody at some point is going to hear that story and they're going to be like, oh yeah. And if somebody else hears it, it renews the interest. Maybe they start searching again. Maybe it gets somebody to talk about it on the news. Maybe it spreads the word a little further than it did last time.
One of the big things we do, and I'm sorry in advance to the police departments, but we always put the police department's numbers up there, and we encourage like the people listening to call them and ask if there's any progress on the case, to let them know that people still give a damn about these people who are missing or these cold cases. And again, it's maybe kind of a slightly dickish thing to do, but then again, it's kind of their job to be investigating it. So there's no harm in asking questions as long as you're, not being a prick.
Exactly. Squeaky wheels gets the grease, as they always
Exactly what we
say.
say.
And
Yeah,
if somebody is not going to be making the noise, at least you are. So that's one good thing. Well, hey guys, I really appreciate it. It's been so awesome having you on the show.
Yeah,
folks, I will be posting links to their show as well as their Facebook down in the comments, so everybody that sees the episode can go and hopefully follow them. I'm sure you will not regret it because they do a lot of good for a lot of people. And tune in to see their show live every Thursday. They do it on Facebook and YouTube. It is a great time. Hop into the chat and talk to them sometime. They're super friendly guys. And I will be on their show this coming Thursday. So that would be, as a date of recording, that'd be 5/28, correct? And so I will be on their show. We'll be talking about some missing people over there and lighting the lantern of fear and see how that goes. Appreciate you guys. We'll definitely be talking more in the very near future.
Thank you, Reverend Redbeard.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, fellas.
Welcome back, hikers. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that interview, and thanks again to Travis and Jeff for joining us for this week's broadcast. They serve a very important role in keeping the stories of the lost alive up here in Maine, so hopefully you will take that opportunity and seek them out. Follow them on social media. I will post links to their work in the description so you can find them later. And as always, this is a reminder that the Fogcast is an Acadia After Dark production. Background music and sound effects is courtesy of Epidemic Sound. Intro and outro music is written and produced by Pine Tree Riot. If you want more of the show, you can head on over to acadiaafterdark.com. And if you want to have access to early episodes as well as exclusive content, you can light your lantern and become a lantern holder today by joining us on Patreon. Keep those lanterns lit and stay safe out there, hikers.